and I found this duffel bag in the weeds over here, mushroom hunting.
It was like he was screaming help to me. The only help I know to do is to call 911. Boy, it still bothers me that somebody would have the audacity to throw somebody else away like that piece of trash.
Today's case originates out of New Pekin, a small town in southern Indiana. It was here that a local mushroom hunter made a discovery that not only shook him to his core, but also rattled the entire local community. Jeffrey Meredith, a southern Indiana native, was known for hunting mushrooms right outside of his home. He would sit outside and stare into the trees for hours. He called it his heaven. But on Saturday, April 16th, 2022, that vast wooded area he once thought of as a place of peace would forever be marked by a dark memory when a routine stroll led him to a bone-chilling discovery. Meredith was out on the hunt for wild mushrooms when he spotted something out of place. It was a suitcase. His instincts told him something was wrong, and he thought about calling the police, but he didn't want to have them come out if it was just a random throwaway item. So to ease his suspicion, he opened it. What he saw sent a complete streak of terror throughout his entire body. Inside was a pillow and black trash bags. Stuffed inside one of those bags was the lifeless body of a little boy.
I found this duffel bag in the weeds over here, mushroom hunting, and it's got a baby boy in it.
Okay, calm down.
The child appeared to be African American and around the age of 5 or so. Meredith couldn't help but to think of his own grandchildren, 3 of which were around the same age. So this was very personal to him, and he was traumatized by the idea that someone could do such a horrible thing. Why wasn't this little boy protected? Like many of us, he was completely baffled and couldn't understand it. The area in which the suitcase was found was located in southeast Washington County in Indiana, on the north side of Holder Road, a secluded spot that led to a dead end. Police came out to investigate the scene and immediately began asking questions to all the residents in the area. On April 19th, just 3 days later, an autopsy was conducted and the trash bags were sent off for fingerprints. Though the one thing that stood out the most was the suitcase itself. It was a hard-shell, multicolored rolling suitcase with the words, "Welcome to fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada," on the front. With little to no information to go by, photos of the suitcase quickly circulated via news media outlets and online sources. Law enforcement officials were hoping that someone would recognize it and come forward. Tips came in from all over the country, but none were promising. And for months, no one came forward and gave any substantial information about this little boy. This was frustrating to the police and the local community. How is that even possible that a child this age could go missing and not have family members notice? What about his aunts, his uncles, his grandparents? It was hard to believe. And what made it even more bizarre was the fact that law enforcement said from an external observation, the young boy appeared to be well cared for. Yet, without the results of an autopsy, they were unsure of what the actual cause of death could have been.
Obviously, this is a 5 to 8 year old young man. Somebody was taking care of him. He was in somebody's custody and care for his daily needs and for support. And we still haven't received any information about a child that's missing that hasn't been accounted for that would match his description. So we're asking for the public's help again to keep this going. Somebody out there either knows and isn't saying something or just hasn't had the opportunity to see this in the media yet, and they don't know that they need to call somebody.
On May 27th, the results of the autopsy were released to the public. The diagnosis concluded that the young boy died from an electrolyte imbalance due to gastroenteritis. It was further explained to be a condition defined by vomiting and diarrhea due to dehydration. The autopsy also stated that the young boy appeared to be of normal growth and development. But to the public, this information only added to the confusion. I mean, what did this really mean? Did he perhaps get sick and then as a result succumb to dehydration? No one really knew. And this caused even more theories to spread about what possibly happened to this child. Over 6 weeks had passed, and there was still no solid information leading to the guardians of this little boy. Meredith was still visibly shaken by the whole incident, choking up each time he spoke about it.
When I first saw that little feller, immediately I felt that he was telling me, help me. I need help. It's wrong. God, is it wrong? In every way.
He couldn't stomach the idea that an innocent child could ever leave this earth in such a despicable way. He deserved to have a proper homegoing. It wasn't right that he was just discarded on the side of the road like a piece of trash. But on Wednesday, June 1st at 11 a.m., that would all change. Locals from around the town came together and organized a service. A funeral was held to honor the short and precious life of the unknown little boy. Flowers, stuffed animals, and strangers from all over filled the room at Weathers Funeral Home in Salem, Indiana. One of the most beautiful things surrounding this tragedy was the outpour of love from the Washington County community. Because no one knew his name, those present and around the town collectively referred to the young boy as Angel. Moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and neighbors shed tears and words of kindness for a boy they didn't even know. They considered him family and proudly adopted him as their own. Overall, they held 3 candlelit vigils to honor him and paid for his funeral. But they didn't stop there. They also purchased a headstone and had it engraved. It read, "In loving memory of a beloved little boy, known but to God." They left a blank space with hopes that one day they would be able to fill it with his real name. The amount of kindness from that community was something you don't often see. And considering the diabolical nature of this case and what I'm about to tell you, I am so glad there's a God and the people of Washington County were able to show up as his beacon of light in such a dark and what turned out to be sinister situation. On June 29th, the Indiana State Forensics Office reported that 2 matches came back from the fingerprints analysis on the trash bags. The first set of prints matched to 37-year-old Pt.1 Anderson of Atlanta, Georgia. On July 25th, it was confirmed that the second set of prints belonged to 40-year-old John Coleman of Shreveport, Louisiana. Upon further investigation, law enforcement discovered a disturbing history of events involving the 2 women. Anderson was the owner of Ashley Logistics Corporation in Atlanta, Georgia. It was also learned that a child was listed on the business records as the secretary. Just 1 month prior to the discovery of the suitcase, Anderson had been arrested in South Carolina for child endangerment in the form of reckless driving 25 miles over the speed limit and failing to stop for the blue lights. She was driving at a speed of 92 miles per hour in a 60 mile per hour zone when she led police on a 30-mile pursuit. There were 2 others inside the vehicle at the time: Dawn Coleman, whom Anderson told police was her sister, and a small child. The chase ended when the car ran out of gas, though when officers approached the vehicle, both women refused to open the doors, forcing the officers to have to break the back window to gain entry.
On a blustery Saturday night in March, a South Carolina state trooper said this 2019 Dodge Challenger was going more than 30 miles over the speed limit.
30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed limit. 30 miles over the speed
With sirens on, he chased for 30 miles until...
You think he ran out of gas?
They ran out of gas, and troopers used a pit maneuver.
Pit.
Eventually, the Challenger died.
Put your hands up!
They surrounded the car and repeatedly asked the driver, Dijon Anderson, to open the doors.
We're gonna bust the glass!
When the doors finally opened, troopers took out Don Coleman first.
Oh no, there's a baby right there. I don't have nothing.
Then they pulled out Dijon Anderson. With the two in handcuffs, they turned to the 5-year-old in the back seat.
Here, hold your jacket, okay? Back out. Let's try to get you out of here. Y'all just ran out of gas?
Yes, that's why we were trying to hurry up and
Get the doors in?
Yes.
All right, ma'am, you are under arrest.
Don Coleman says she's the child's aunt and can take care of him.
I'm going to call the lieutenant. Okay. See what you want to do with me. She's the sister. Just get the child with you and get them up to the 33 hotel for the night until y'all got...
To a Hilton hotel with the child, while Anderson was transported to the Colton County Jail. She made bail the next day and was released. Though just 19 days later, on March 31st, Anderson was arrested yet again, this time in Louisville, Kentucky, for second-degree robbery. A witness inside the Oxmoor Mall reported Anderson for stealing clothes and putting them in her bag. When the security officer stopped her, she punched him in the face.
What happens in this video led to Dijon Anderson's arrest. You can see security at Oxmoor Center pull her aside, suspecting her of shoplifting. Then, watch closely, she punches the guard square in the face.
So, who exactly is the other woman, Don Coleman? And what is the true relationship between the two women? By social accounts, Coleman presented herself as a spiritual healer. She spoke frequently about vibrations and healing, though her social media presence offered a closer look into something darker and more disturbing. Don Coleman was deeply affiliated with the occult. She openly made claims that she's not human and from another planet. She asserted that she's reptilian and is simply on Earth to claim those who receive special downloads of a message specific only to them.
Even if you don't get the download to go off the grid, get your ass in nature. There's downloads and information that we need to keep us. Don't be tapping in and out. This is the time that you need to be all in your senses, because there's things happening that a lot of you guys do not understand. But if you were doing what you need to be doing to keep your vibration high and stay tapped into your guidance, you will be just fine.
She had a significant social media following of people who would seek her for her services. The services she offered were promoted as healings, protections, reversal spells, exorcisms, hexes, curses, and DNA activation. It's in my opinion that, beyond the outcome of this case, there is a major cause for concern regarding Coleman and her occult way of life. Part 2 offers a deeper look into some unnerving findings surrounding her practices. But for now, let's stick to the case at hand. It appears Anderson may have met Coleman online and connected while seeking services from her. From what I've gathered, they're not sisters and do not appear to have any familial relation, though a few news articles have referred to them as such. From December 2021 to April of 2022, police obtained disturbing conversations between Anderson and Coleman from their social media accounts. And I'll forewarn you, the messages I'm about to share are very unsettling. On December 5th, Anderson sent a message to Coleman about her son. She said her child was a curse and not really a child. She spoke about wanting a higher vibration and stopping a low vibration movement. Anderson said she couldn't wait to tell her story about an exorcism and having a demonic child, and was looking forward to starting a podcast to talk about it. 1 month later, on January 5th, Coleman made a Facebook post that read, "I'm using my blood for this ritual." On February 19th, Anderson posts, "Can't wait to tell my story. I had to raise my frequency, heal myself in past lives, heal my ancestors, heal shit in the universe, heal Gaia to exorcism a very powerful demonic force from within my son, had people in enough alignment with their soul to assist me. Still, I choose my soul and was able to completely heal myself and remove old paradigms from my mind. I know you can choose your soul with no questions asked. On March 15th, she continued, "Stop getting caught up in the vessels of this realm. You guys get caught up in how old the body is, if they adult and kids, etc. Don't even know it's a full-grown demon in a child body telling you what to do because you didn't choose your soul. Better start using your third eye." March 18th. Can't wait to tell this story about That Exorcism, a book about living with a demonic child, and a podcast. On April 8th, Coleman posts to Facebook, "Just because the avatar is of what we call a child does not mean that it is actually a child. There are beings that are here that are not supposed to be here, that pick avatars to hide behind, to play roles, to steal energy and ruin lives. You better check to see if the children that you think are children actually have souls, or if they're not malevolent beings with a soul and in a child avatar. Magic is real. Curses are real. And there are some very powerful beings that will curse your womb and then some. Nothing is what it seems. And we are catering to evil beings in children avatars that aren't even children. Y'all need to rise. Most of you won't. Most will be wiped out because of your demons, and this paradigm has no room for that. AKMG. She signs off many of her posts with the initials AKMG. On April 11th, Anderson was released from the Jefferson County Jail in Kentucky. She took to Facebook with a post that read, "Just got out of a jail mission. Yes, had to do some healing and killing." The following day, she takes to Twitter, reaching out to someone by the screen name @FR_Vince_Lampert. "Good day, sir. I need to speak with you urgently. I have survived the death attacks from my 5-year-old throughout the 5 years he's been alive. I've been able to weaken his powers through our blood. I have his real name, and he's 100 years old. Need assistance." It appears that the Twitter account tagged in the post belongs to a priest out of Indianapolis, Indiana, by the name of Vincent Lampert. News media would later reveal that Lampert never responded. Cell phone records would later confirm that just 2 days later, on April 14th, both Anderson and Coleman were in the area of Holder Road in Pickens, Indiana, where the suitcase was later found containing the unidentified child. Video surveillance obtained from a resident nearby also showed their vehicle, which appeared to stop on Holder Road, but did not show if it continued down the road to the dead end. On April 15th, Anderson wrote, "This is a whole demon in a child body. Why you think she need a cigarette? Losing energy, huh? 64 years old in a child body. Was full of gifts and magical rights, stronger than many of you because your frequency not high enough. Start asking spirit to reveal these things to you hiding behind a body." The next day, on April 16th, the suitcase was found. Police would later obtain footage of Anderson's 2019 Dodge Challenger with Georgia plates as it was captured on I-65 by Riverlink's cameras. It was heading over the bridge from Jefferson, Indiana to Louisville, Kentucky at 8:16 p.m. They then uncovered pictures from social media matching the child in the suitcase. There was a picture and video with Coleman on Facebook with the same suitcase shown in her background. On July 8th, the GBI obtained a birth certificate for a child listed under the Georgia state files, born at Northside Hospital in Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia. The mother was listed as DeJuan Anderson, and the father, Vincent Charles Jordan Jr. Evidence continued to mount as the investigation continued. On October 14th, an arrest warrant was issued for both DeJuan Ludi Anderson and Don Coleman for neglect of a dependent resulting in death and obstruction of justice. On October 19th, Coleman was arrested in California, but Anderson still remained at large. On Tuesday, October 25th, the name of the unidentified little boy was finally released to the public. His name was Cairo Jordan, and ironically, it was his birthday. He would have turned 6. This was the news Jeffrey Meredith had long waited for. It warmed his soul to know the name of the little boy who captured his heart. He told reporters he didn't want to leave this earth without knowing his name.
It feels like the weight of the world went off my shoulder because I got his name now. I did not want to go out of this world without knowing that little boy's name.
It wasn't until this day that he was even able to walk back over to the spot he found the suitcase, a place that haunted him for months and a sight that was all too much to bear until now. Despite the murky beginnings surrounding this case, it was learned that Cairo had an entire family of people who loved him dearly.
Tonight, we are hearing for the first time from the great-grandmother of an Atlanta boy at the center of a murder mystery.
So the body of 5-year-old Cairo Jordan was discovered in a suitcase in rural Indiana, and now police are searching for his mom, who is now a wanted murderer. Bobeth Yates is following the investigation for us tonight.
Well, as you can imagine, great-grandma Mary remains in disbelief, saying while she hasn't seen the boy in years, when he and his mother were around, there was no indication that things would end this way.
But yeah, that's him. That's my baby right there. Yeah, I remember that picture.
Seeing that, does it make you
feel sad?
Cairo Jordan's great-grandmother, Mary Jordan, is reeling after news that his body was found in a suitcase left on the side of the road in Indiana back in April. Only yesterday, on what would have been his 6th birthday, did police identify the remains. Police now saying the mom, Deja Anderson's fingerprints were found on trash bags inside the suitcase, and they believe she's responsible for the murder. An autopsy showing he died of an electrolyte imbalance, likely caused by inflammation in his gastrointestinal tract.
I don't want to know what was on her mind. What was the reason that he was dehydrated, the electrolytes or whatever they described in that diagnosis.
An arrest affidavit showing before the body was discovered, Anderson posted repeatedly on social media about demons using her children as avatars. This post reading, "I can't wait to tell this story about that exorcism." Another reading in part, "I had to raise my frequency, heal myself and past lives to exorcise a very powerful demonic force within my son." And great-grandma Mary told me she found those posts shocking.
She wrote that? She's not well. That is not real. That kind of talk is so far-fetched.
She says she didn't think Anderson was capable of harming her grandson, and now all that's left are memories of the times she and Cairo spent together.
He was such a happy baby, though. He was real happy here, because I know his little face is so sad and sweet at the same time.
Well, Dejan Anderson is still on the run tonight, and anyone with information about her whereabouts is asked to call the police. Sending it back to you guys.
Investigators were able to locate his father, and it was also on this day that Vincent was notified about the tragic death of his baby boy and the awful way in which he was found. He was absolutely heartbroken. He took to social media and shared his unimaginable grief and anger with the world. He wrote, "Today my heart was broken into a million pieces. I got a call from an officer telling me that my 5-year-old son, Cairo Jordan, who ironically turned 6 today, was murdered by his mother, DeJuan Anderson, in Indiana, April 14th, 2022. It's October 25th, his birthday, and they are just now notifying me about his death." He goes on to explain that he and his family spent the last 3 years looking for DeJuan and his son, who took him away at the beginning of a custody battle back in 2017. He said DeJuan threatened to call the police on him for coming to pick his son up on an agreed weekend. It was the last weekend he ever saw his son's face because Dewan never showed up to a scheduled court hearing. Not only did Dewan keep Cairo away from his father, but she also became estranged to the rest of the family as well. He ends his heartbreaking message by saying he's living a parent's worst nightmare. He writes, "Choose your mates wisely, y'all. It's deeper than baby mama, baby daddy drama. Rest in heaven, Cairo. I love you, son." For months, law enforcement had no idea about the identity of this little boy. They didn't know who his parents were or if they were somehow involved in what happened to him. And unfortunately, it appears that this also played a role in the timing in which Cairo's father was notified. Nevertheless, though heartbroken, Vincent was thankful. He publicly thanked those who pulled together to love on his son when he couldn't be there. As stated before, Dewan Anderson is still at large at the time of this video. And for future references, it is currently January 2023. She is 5 feet, 5 inches tall, weighing approximately 135 pounds, with sometimes short brown hair. According to police, she was last seen in Los Angeles and has been known to travel around other cities within California, Las Vegas, and Houston. And let's be reminded that she was arrested in South Carolina for child endangerment charges and also in Louisville, Kentucky for robbery. So it's possible she may be in those areas as well. It is also important to know that Anderson has received several prostitution charges in the past. Authorities speculated it may be the reason why she visited Louisville when she did, as the Kentucky Derby was going on during the time of her travel. The event usually brings a lot of traffic, which has historically been linked to an increase in prostitution. They're not 100% sure, but have not ruled out the possibility considering her past criminal history involving sex work. Now, this is just a speculation on my behalf, but I do think it's possible that her involvement in street work could be how she's been able to get around financially and also fly under the radar undetected for so long, especially without having a home base of employment. If you see this woman, please call 911 immediately. Dawn Coleman was arraigned on Monday, November 21st in an Indiana court. She made a statement that her and Dewan were staying with a relative when Cairo died. According to her, she walked into a room and found Dewan sitting on top of him while he was face down on a bed.
An update tonight, Dawn Coleman, the woman arrested last month for her role in the death of 5-year-old Cairo Jordan, is now back in Indiana and facing a new charge in the boy's death.
You might remember it was a mushroom hunter that made the discovery of this little boy's body inside a suitcase. It was deep in the woods in Pekin, Indiana. That discovery was made back in April, and now tonight we're learning more about what happened the day that someone killed the young boy and left his body in southern Indiana.
John Duran actually spoke with state police who say they're still looking for the boy's mother tonight.
More than 7 months after Cairo Jordan's body was found, new information has been released. Dawn Coleman, who was arrested in October in San Francisco, is now charged with aiding murder in connection to Cairo Jordan's death in Washington County. Court documents say Coleman knew Cairo's mother, Dejon Anderson, for about a year, and that Coleman babysat Cairo while Anderson was in jail. In April, the two were staying at a house in Louisville. Not long after they got there, Coleman says she walked into a bedroom where she found Anderson on top of her son, who was laying face down on the bed. She told Coleman, quote, "It was already done." Court documents say they put Cairo's body in a hard-sided Las Vegas suitcase that belonged to Coleman and can be seen in several of her social media posts. Anderson put the suitcase in the trunk and headed to southern Indiana, where the suitcase was found in some woods.
She is currently being held on a $5 million bond and is scheduled for trial on May 1st, 2023. There's so much more to this case that I had to divide it up into parts because this is honestly one of the most horrifying crimes I've come across. I had way too many unanswered questions to just share the story as is. For starters, what really happened to Cairo? And was there an exorcism that took place? Also, I wanted to know, what was the priest's response to the media about Pt.1 actually reaching out to him? Have any other children ever died in the care of either of these women? I needed to know, so I had to dig deeper, and I'm so glad I did. But first, let me give you a trigger warning. I'll be sharing more disturbing and graphic details, but this information may have shed light on a much bigger problem. Stick with me. I'll catch you in the next episode.